And so we are going to round out our panel discussion with just some advice that we'd like each of you to give to teachers who are just starting out. And then we'll shift into the breakout discussions where the group can talk to you guys more, unpack some of the things you've said here, and see some of your resources. So we can just start, I guess, with Sarah and just go right down the line. So what would you say to teachers who are pretty new to this, who are just starting out?
I mean, I think just dip your toe in, just do it, as nervous as you might feel, and you know, just pick a lesson or a part of a lesson to somehow change or transform in a way that you think is beneficial, not doing it just to do it, but you know, just to try it, and no matter how nervous you are, it's going to be fine. I just remember we were talking about this at lunch, that literally the morning of the first, not the first time I did it, but the first time I did it in like a whole long form, I was like, maybe I just shouldn't do it. You know, I'll just stick with the normal. And I'm so glad that I kind of just dove in. So don't get intimidated. You're all amazing teachers. You're here. You know, you probably already are doing some of this stuff. So just try.
My advice would be to be as transparent with the students as possible. So just let them know, you know, hey, I learned something really cool. I just want to try it out on you guys. We'll figure it out together. If parts of it aren't working for you, let me know, and you know, we'll adjust accordingly. I think my students really respected the fact that I would say, okay, guys, listen, I've never done this in life. Let's figure it out together. We're going to see what happens, and you know, they really appreciated that. So I think that's important.
Just real quick, Brittany, you had said earlier when we were in conversation at the table about how, you know, your co-teacher expressed concern about there not being kind of a set routine because you kept changing things up based on what was working and what wasn't working. Can you just share a little about your thoughts about that?
Yes, sure. So as Carrie said, my co-teacher was like, wait a minute, you know, we're doing too much. Monday we're doing it this way, and Tuesday we're doing it this way. And my response was, well, we're going to keep changing it until we find a way that works. Because if Monday didn't work, let's not do that again. Let's not approach it that way. We need to change it. And so things were different in my classroom for quite some time. I mean, for the whole second semester, I don't think I had any 2 days that were exactly alike. But that was okay, and the kids liked it too, and the kids even told me, they're like, we never know what to expect when we come here. I'm like, that's why you're still coming, and it's May, and you're seniors. So, you know, they wanted to be there because they didn't know what was going to happen. So, definitely exciting.
One thing I would say is, you know, if you've created a space where the students are working and they're engaged and you're sort of not entirely sure where you belong, that means you've set up something that's working. Like, they're engaged, they're working. It's so don't get anxious at that moment where you're like, where am I right now? But at the same time, you know, don't write yourself out of your classroom. You don't have to have kids on the computers every day. You don't need to be doing, you know, this doesn't all, not all of this has to be technology based. Find ways for it to be varied. Something that I am going to really work on being better at next year is having kids do interacting with stuff in terms of technology online, but actually writing by hand. Because I'm noticing sort of this cubicle effect in my room, which I detest, and I don't want my students to feel that way. So if you get to the point where, you know, you're hearing like, yes, we don't need Chromebooks today, that means you've gone too far, you know, in one direction. The kids still benefit from, you know, books in hand, in paper in hand, and the teacher inspiring them in front of the room, and make sure that you're still allowing that to be a part of it, because once you get into this, it's kind of fun. I mean, you're gonna want to like hyperdoc everything, and you can go overboard and you can go a little nuts with it. So you know, just create a space, like Brittany said, for them to feel comfortable with you experimenting, and for you to feel comfortable within that experiment.
I would say just give it a try. And I know the first time that I did it, I think I was a little too ambitious, and I tried to make something that was really big. And it was like my first time trying it, and I realized I was like, okay, I did way too much. So maybe if you're feeling anxious about it, just pick one thing. Just pick one thing that you'd like to give it a try, and then go ahead and give it a try. And then you can build upon that as you go on throughout the year. And so maybe just trying out little things one at a time, you'll be able to feel more comfortable about it, and then blend it with other things that you've learned. And so that's something that I've figured out along the way.
I say just kind of be easy on yourself when it comes to this. Don't try to reinvent everything. Look on Google first. Find something that you can borrow and change a little bit to fit what you need it to do. I'm going to go over some of the ways that I do that in my breakout, but once you create one hyperdoc, you're good. Use that as your template. You can change the colors, you can change the font, but there's no need to start from a blank sheet of paper. Follow some techie people on Twitter. They're always posting ideas and tips that will help you with the management part of things. I really like Caitlin Tucker. She's really great. And the last thing is to use GoGuardian if you're not already using it. GoGuardian is another thing I'm going to talk about, but it's a way that you can monitor your students' Chromebooks from your computer and in real time and go back and look at what they had been doing the entire period. They are still teenagers. They still need to know that we're watching, and they need to know that this matters. Even if they think it doesn't, that it matters to us, and we're going to check it. So that would be my advice.
Can I add one more
Yeah.
thing? I just can't help myself. No, I'd written this down and forgot to say it. Find someone in your building who supports what you're doing, even if they're not comfortable doing it themselves, but who's sort of like either a cheerleader or just someone who is excited that you're trying it. It could be another teacher. It could be a staff development teacher. It could be the janitor. It could be, your principal, but someone who is supporting that you're trying something new. Because it is nerve-wracking, can be stressful, I guess, if you're trying to do something new, and it's nice to have someone who's like in your corner, like, oh, how'd it go? And because there are other people in your building, and I'm sure you know who they are, who might be the cynical ones or the ones who are going to roll their eyes or all those negative things. So find the one positive person that you can kind of like cheerlead with each other. That's my
One other thing that I would say as far as getting started, and I think this is common practice for most of us anyway, as far as like creating worksheets or different processes in our class. But remember, not everything has to be catered to the single unit or single text that you're doing, because if you're doing that, you're going to create a lot of stuff that is like one use only, and it takes time. So if I'm doing symbolism in Song of Solomon, I can do symbolism in Song of Solomon with a hyperdoc or with some sort of process that I'm using that isn't beholden to that one text. So then I don't need to create a new one when I'm moving on to whatever else I'm teaching. So just make sure that you're not caging yourself in with the materials like, man, that was really great, but it took me 3 hours to make that one for that one book. And now I've got another book I have to teach, and so find ways of creating things that are common use, and not only that helps you to share things. And it's really important that if you're going to start doing this, I think that you share what you're doing with colleagues and teammates, and getting it out there so that other people can try different things as well.
One more comment. Sorry. So I was telling Rachel this earlier too, just like how she has the camera on us now. One thing that I've started doing, and maybe it's the national board like gluttoning me since we had the videotape, is having someone videotape me when I do my blended lessons. And sometimes it's a student, sometimes it's this team, sometimes it's my co-teacher, it could be whoever. But if you actually look back at what's happening in your classroom and what you're doing, you're able to get some really good personal feedback.
All right. Well, I think we should give our teachers a hand and thank them for joining us and sharing their experiences.